Hello, folks. I'm not Pastor Butch. I don't know where he is. We can't find him. No, actually, Marcia had an operation. It was 7 hours long. There were a couple procedures, and she's doing well. But I think he's still in Charleston, isn't he?
Yeah, he's still in Charleston.
So we thank you for prayers. We thank you for tuning in. And this is going to be a little different, so I'm going to tell you how this is going to work, or how it's supposed to work. Okay. In 2011, in June, I did a program when Butch was gone, and it was actually called A Case for a Creator, and it was by a man that I've really come to admire. His name is Lee Strobel. Okay, and Lee, I think maybe in this video, or maybe one of the other ones, he did 3 documentaries. Okay, A Case for Faith, A Case for Christ, and A Case for a Creator. Okay, and he explained that he lost. Well, let's put it this way. Yeah, he lost. He became an atheist in college in biology class. Okay, and you're going to see in this video today, later on, you're going to understand how that's something that I'm going to address. That's one of Satan's biggest ploys, is evolution, and through the teaching of biology, which, like I say, you'll see it. So look for it. Okay. The first presentation today is not going to be Lee Strobel, but it's going to be a look at biometrics. Okay, a look at what's happening in the field of artificial intelligence, in the field of drones. It's truly amazing, and it shows us how revelation can occur.
Yes.
Okay. Christ told us, we're not to be unawares. We're supposed to be knowing what the devil's doing. We're supposed to know the wiles of the devil. And so we're going to look at some biometrics, and after we do that, it's going to be about 40-some minutes long. We're going to have a 30-minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to have a discussion. So we're going to take notes here on the presentation and focus on thoughts that this presentation puts in your mind, and how Scripture ties in, how prophecy ties in, what the Bible says is our duty, and how we can combat the wiles of the devil, especially in the end times. It says, if it were possible, even the very elect would be deceived. Mm-hmm. And my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. So, therefore, it behooves us to be knowledgeable and know what's going on, and then our hearts won't fail us. But we have to be tied in to Christ, to Jesus. We have to. It's a spiritual battle. So anyway, so here we go. We're going to have a 40-minute in a minute program about biometrics. 30-minute break. Come back, have a discussion. That will probably be edited into the Bible study. And then we'll have a short break, probably about 5 minutes, something like that. And then we will have the second part, which is excerpts from A Case for a Creator by Lee Strobel, and then some more things that I put in, and then an actual trailer of the movie that was produced and showed. It hit the theaters last summer. Okay, it's called A Case for Christ, and you're definitely going to want to see it. You'll see the trailer, but I'm saying, watch it. It is fantastic. So at this point, did you switch out to A? Is it blinking?
Blinking?
Yeah. Okay. Just go ahead and push it up. We'll be right back. Biometrics, drones, artificial intelligence, government surveillance, political correctness. Should you be concerned? This is an email that I received from Mark Lerner on December 26th. He's with the Constitutional Alliance. He works with groups fighting biometric identification, such as the Real ID Act, explaining that a Russian firm made software that is incorporated
into biometric programs in the United States. As a matter of fact, one of these companies is Saffron, who does West Virginia driver's licenses and school children at Taggarts Valley High School, Middle School. This is a video explaining what's happened.
Biometric data belonging to millions of Americans may or may not be at risk. It is frankly unclear. Code developed by a Russian company found its way into fingerprint recognition software reportedly used by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the TSA PreCheck program, as well as some 18,000 other American law enforcement agencies, including the New York City Police Department. A French company called Sagem Sécurité, later renamed Morpho, supplied the software but deliberately concealed that a portion of the code was purchased from a Russian firm called Papillon AO. Sagem Sécurité reportedly paid the equivalent of about $6 million up front to use the code in its own fingerprint analysis program, in addition to some recurring annual fees. Papillon has boasted in marketing materials about collaborating on product development with various Kremlin agencies, including the Ministry of Defense and the Federal Security Service, Russia's chief security agency, also known as the FSB.
Should we be concerned?
Hello guys, I've been expecting you. Maybe these guys aren't in on the joke. Well, let's see how long it takes you to find me. Thank you very much, let's go.
可以追溯到说，出现每一张脸都可以对应说他的身份证，以及他所经过，比方说在过去一周，我们回溯他的行经路程，我们也做了像人和车的匹配。那同时在人上匹配还包括亲属关系匹配，然后是你经常接触人员之间匹配。就是当摄像机布到或者我们传感器布到一定密度的时候，其实我们会经常知道你跟谁经常在一起。
So already on this bridge, I can see 1, 2, 3 CCTV cameras.
哎，对，就是这嘞，就是这嘞。就是反正了。对，就是这嘞。
Uh-oh. Right behind me, you can see just over my left shoulder there. Hello, guys. I've been expecting you.
因为我觉得每天你都感觉到有一只眼睛盯着你，一只无形的眼睛，不管你干什么事儿，你总是有所顾忌。高科技为那个警察维稳提供了方便，所以他们的思路如果不改变，对这么一些意见人士，然后进行监控，可能是起了更大的作用。
然后对平民老百姓，是老百姓需要帮助的时候，我们才会录入这条系统。那他不需要帮助的这种情况，那么我们是不需要采集他的信息的。那这种信息只是在我们大数据里面有他的信息就行了。那在什么时候使用，是根据我们的需要来做这项工作的。
Should we be concerned? Things like the DHS announces program to illegally scan our faces at airports. And what about artificial intelligence? Is this the missing link to biometric security? It certainly is an artificial intelligence explosion. Many people know that Cambodia's Khmer Rouge regime murdered anyone who wore glasses, the intelligentsia. They even took pictures of people before they tortured and killed them. What is now possible with drones?
Welcome to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. Well, I've always loved drones and technology, and a few years back I watched this TED Talk with these drones, and he was showing how the drones could balance a pole. And
suppose that we want this quad to not only hover, but to also balance this pole. With a little bit of practice, it's pretty straightforward for a human being to do this, although we do have the advantage of having 2 feet on the ground and the use of our very versatile hands. You can notice that this quad is making fine adjustments to keep the pole balanced. Here you see that it's stable, and even if I give it little nudges, it goes back to the nice balanced position. Using this pointer, made out of reflective markers, I can point to where I want the quad to be in space, a fixed distance away from me. The key to these acrobatic maneuvers is algorithms, designed with the help of mathematical models and control theory. Let's tell the quad to come back here and let the pole drop, and I will next demonstrate the importance of understanding physical models and the workings of the physical world. Notice how the quad lost altitude when I put this glass of water on it. Unlike the balancing pole, I did not include the mathematical model of the glass in the system. In fact, the system doesn't even know that the glass of water is there. Like before, I can use the pointer to tell the quad where I want to be in space. It naturally doesn't spill, no matter what the quad does.
how you could toss a ball towards it and it could hit it back right to him. And how the drones could work together to control what they call Skynet.
Machines can not only perform dynamic maneuvers on their own, they can do it collectively. These three quads are cooperatively carrying a Skynet.
And all three of them could work together to catch it, and then they could actually fling it back.
They perform an extremely dynamic and collective maneuver to launch the ball back to me. Notice that at full extension, these quads are vertical. Before aerial package delivery entered our social consciousness, an autonomous fleet of flying machines built a 6-meter tall tower composed of 1,500 bricks in front of a live audience at the Frac Center in France. And several years ago, they started to fly with ropes. By tethering flying machines, they can achieve high speeds and accelerations in very tight spaces. They can also autonomously build tensile structures. Skills learned include how to carry loads, how to cope with disturbances, and in general, how to interact with the physical world. This last demonstration is an exploration of synthetic swarms. The large number of autonomous, coordinated entities offers a new palette for aesthetic expression. We've taken commercially available micro-quadcopters, each weighing less than a slice of bread, by the way, and outfitted them with our localization technology and custom algorithms. Because each unit knows where it is in space and is self-controlled, there is really no limit to their number.
So of course, with any kind of technology like that, if you follow it long enough, you can see things that get miniaturized. Now they came up with this new swarm technology, which is really cool with the way the lights work and everything. Totally autonomous. So of course I see this and I'm thinking, as an artist, how cool would this be? Think of just like they have air shows and they have fireworks shows and those fountain shows at different places. What could they possibly do with lights and drones? But of course, with any technology like this, there's those that see this and think, how can we use this to kill people? And that's the reason I'm making this video, to raise awareness for where this technology appears to be heading. And then just the beginning of this year, in January of 2017, the military launched a test flight of a swarm of drones to fly their mock-up missions and to see how they work. So a friend of mine sent me this short film about the dangers of where this technology just might be headed. Take a look at this.
Customer pilots directed almost 3,000 precision strikes last year. We're super proud of it. It allows you to separate the bad guys from the good. It's a big deal. But we have something much bigger. Your kids probably have one of these, right? Not quite. Hell of a pilot? No. That skill is all AI. It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human. The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature. Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive. This is how it works. Did you see that? That little bang is enough to penetrate the skull and destroy the contents. They used to say guns don't kill people. People do. Well, people don't. They get emotional, disobey orders, aim high. Let's watch the weapons make the decisions. Now, trust me, these were all bad guys. Now that is an airstrike of surgical precision. It's one of a range of products. Trained as a team, they can penetrate buildings, cars, trains, evade people, bullets, pretty much any countermeasure. They cannot be stopped. Now, I said this was big. Why? Because we are thinking big. Watch. A $25 million order now buys this. Enough to kill half a city. the bad half. Nuclear is obsolete. Take out your entire enemy, virtually risk-free. Just characterize him, release the swarm, and rest easy. These are available today. We have a distribution network taking orders from military, law enforcement, and specialist clients.
The nation is still recovering from yesterday's incident, which officials are describing as some kind of automated attack, which killed 11 U.S. senators at the Capitol building.
They flew in from everywhere but attacked just one side of the aisle. It was chaos. People were screaming.
You can see high windows, very small, precisely punctured to gain entry to the building.
What did you do for the victim?
I just did what I could for him. Things weren't even interested in me. They're just buzzing.
Government sources admit the intelligence community has no idea who perpetrated the attack, nor whether it was a state, group, or even a single individual.
So if we can't defend ourselves, then we strike back.
We are investing very heavily in classified defense projects.
We make it our deterrent like our nuclear deterrent. We stockpile in the millions, the billions.
At key facilities, the White House, the New York Stock Exchange, Wall Street.
Safe in their homes.
Well, we wish we had boots on the ground in every community in this country, but we don't. So our instructions and our suggestions are to stay in touch with
Ollie, hi, Ollie, honey. How's Edinburgh today? How are all your studies going, huh?
Good, great.
Oh, great. Hey, aren't we doing a video call today?
I'm kind of with people, so.
Oh, well, come on, Oliver, put her on.
Oh no, it's not like that. No, wait.
Oh, well, listen, I see some photos here with somebody, and I can see lots of likes, and what's that all about? Oh, wait a minute, here, and on your
Mom, she's on the spy stuff in the military.
What is this video right here? Oh, no, I'm not going to click on that.
It's just this human rights thing about oppression or whatever.
Honey, you're not going into politics, are you? I mean, no protest.
Safe here, just like you said it would be.
Heavy traffic approaching the A720 this morning due to police.
Police are not saying this morning what prompted the alert.
Claim relaxing firearm legislation would be useless against the so-called slaughter bots.
Is to stay away from crowds. When indoors, keep windows covered with shutters.
Protect your family. Stay inside.
Can you hear me? Oliver, can you hear me? Listen to me.
I can hear it.
Authorities are still struggling to make sense of an attack on university campuses worldwide, which targeted some students and not others. The search for a motive is apparently turning to social media, and a video shared by the victims exposing corruption at the height.
But it's far from surprising. The weapons took away the expense, danger, and risk of waging war. And now we can't afford to challenge anyone, really. It's not even the smallest fringe group or a crank.
Who could have done this?
Anyone.
Dumb weapons drop where you point them. Smart weapons consume data. When you can find your enemy using data, even by a hashtag, you can target an evil ideology right where it starts.
This short film is more than just speculation. It shows the results of integrating and miniaturizing technologies that we already have. I'm Stuart Russell, a professor of computer science at Berkeley. I've worked in AI for more than 35 years. Its potential to benefit humanity is enormous, even in defense. But allowing machines to choose to kill humans will be devastating to our security and freedom. Thousands of my fellow researchers agree. We have an opportunity to prevent the future you just saw, but the window to act is closing fast.
In India, biometric enrollment is mandatory. And what is Echelon? This is a video 60 Minutes did.
The top-secret global surveillance network is called Echelon, and it's run by the National Security Agency and 4 English-speaking allies, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. The mission is to eavesdrop on enemies of the state, foreign countries, terrorist groups, and drug cartels. But in the process, Echelon's computers capture virtually every electronic conversation around the world. How does it work? And what happens to all the information that's gathered? A lot of people have begun to ask that question, and some suspect that the information is being used for more than just catching bad guys. We can't see them, but the air around us is filled with invisible electronic signals, everything from cell phone conversations to fax transmissions to ATM transfers. What most people don't realize is that virtually every signal radiated across the electromagnetic spectrum is being collected and analyzed. How much of the world is covered by it?
The entire world, the whole planet, covers everything. Echelon covers everything that's radiated worldwide at any given instant.
Every square inch is covered.
Every square inch is covered.
Mike Frost spent 20 years as a spy for the CSE, the Canadian equivalent of the National Security Agency, and he is the only high-ranking former intelligence agent to speak publicly about the Echelon program. Frost even showed us one of the installations where he says operators can listen in to just about anything.
Everything from data transfers to cell phones, to portable phones, to baby monitors, to ATM.
Baby monitors?
Oh yeah, baby monitors give you a lot of intelligence.
This listening post outside Ottawa is just part of a network of spy stations which are hidden in the hills of West Virginia, in remote parts of Washington state, even in plain view among the sheep pastures of Europe. Is it possible for people like you and I, innocent civilians, to be targeted by Echelon?
Not only possible, not only probable, but factual. While I was at CSE, a classic example, a lady had been to a school play the night before, and her son was in the school play, and she thought he did a lousy job. Next morning, she was talking on the telephone to her friend, and she said to her friend something like this, "So Danny really bombed last night." Just like that. The computer spit that conversation out. The analyst that was looking at it was not too sure about what the conversation was referring to, so erring on the side of caution, he listed that lady and her phone number in the database as a possible terrorist.
This is not urban legend you're talking about. This actually happened.
Factual. Absolutely factual. No legend here.
The U.S. admits it often shares intelligence with its allies, but never to get around the law.
Never, Steve, will governments admit that they can circumvent legislation by asking another country to do for them what they can't do for themselves. They will never admit that. But that sort of thing is so easy to do. It is so commonplace.
Do you have any first-hand experience?
I do have first-hand experience where CSE did some dirty work for Margaret Thatcher when she was Prime Minister.
What kind of dirty work?
Well, at the time, she had 2 ministers that she said, quote, they weren't on side, unquote. And she wanted to find out not what these ministers were saying, but what they were thinking. So my boss, as a matter of fact, went to McDonald House in London and did intercept traffic from these 2 ministers. The British Parliament now have total deniability. They didn't do anything. They know nothing about it. Of course they didn't do anything. We did it for them.
One of the few people to acknowledge that they have listened to conversations over the Echelon system is Margaret Newsham, who worked at Manwith Hill in England back in 1979. She had a top-secret security clearance. So you knew that conversations were being pulled off satellites?
Yes, but to my knowledge, all it was going to be would be like Russian, Chinese, or, foreign.
But soon, she says, she discovered it wasn't only the Russians and the Chinese who were the targets.
I walked into the ops building and a friend said, come over here and listen to this thing. And he had headphones on, so I took the headphones and I listened to it. And I looked at him and I'm going, that's an American. And he said, well, yeah.
And it was definitely an American voice.
It was definitely an American voice. And it was a voice that was distinct. And I said, well, who is that? And he said it was Senator Strom Thurmond. And I go, what?
Do you think this kind of stuff goes on?
Oh, of course it goes on. Been going on for years. Of course it goes on.
I mean, the National Security Agency spying on politicians in the United States?
Sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? Sounds like the world of fiction. It's not. Not the world of fiction. That's the way it works. I've been there. I was trained by you guys.
Other nations have declared enemies of their own people. Of course, it couldn't happen here. Or could it? Believe it or not, this is a fitter family contest at a eugenics building in Kansas. There was eugenics in the United States. This appeared in Popular Science magazine, 1923. And here's West Virginia for eugenics in 1935. This is a video about the United States eugenics program.
At the turn of the 20th century, rapid industrialization and urbanization led to a social upheaval, defined by goals for a civilization free of violence, disease, and mental ailments. However, the means by which this utopian society would be attempted would include some of the most profound ethical violations in the history of the United States.
The president was behind it, liberals were behind it, conservatives were behind it, even the Catholic Church at one point was behind it.
Intense growth of American industry, agricultural mechanization, and widespread immigration led to the first major migration away from the farms and into the city, which was now expanding faster than adequate housing could be provided. The solution to the modern problems of an industrialized society required increased government involvement in the social sphere, a philosophy known as progressivism. The construct of scientific management offered a methodical means of social engineering. Geneticists of the age could prove, through the use of human pedigrees and their knowledge of plant and animal genetics, that degeneracy was an inheritable trait. It seemed only right that if a society free of all mental and physical ailments, free of violence and crime, illiteracy and foolishness, it seemed only right to end the reproductive capabilities of people expressing these traits. Eugenics was the result of an America unwilling to make social changes, an upper class fearful of its laboring counterparts. Eugenics placed the blame of a social quandary on individual races and classes, and thus freed from culpability the industrial, scientific, and political barons of the time. Cold Spring Harbor, New York, 1910. Charles B. Davenport, along with Harry H. Laughlin, both biologists and members of the American Breeders' Association, found the Eugenics Record Office with financial help from the Carnegie Institution. The ERO would be the headquarters of eugenic research in the United States for the next 34 years. Using various research methods, including human pedigrees, hereditary questionnaires, interviewing groups of special interest such as circus performers, and collecting census data, the ERO was able to justify the administration of eugenic laws nationwide, including immigration and marriage restrictions, race segregation, and forced sterilization of criminals and other undesirables. The ERO, however, was not only able to justify the eugenics atrocities, but integrated them into popular culture to make eugenics and related terms such as race hygiene household words. Popular literature published in the 20s often donned eugenics in their subject matter, such as these manuals on raising a healthy family. Clergymen preached of the necessity for good marriages. Perhaps even more disturbing were the contests held at many state fairs, where awards were given to the fittest family, those with the purest pedigrees and, undoubtedly, the most attractive phenotypes would receive awards, such as this medal with an inscription reading, "Yea, I have a goodly heritage."
The eugenics movement spawned lots of people who were considered, even in their own time, out on the fringe. who even endorsed such things as euthanasia. But that was not a mainline part of the movement. It certainly became parts of the movement internationally, but not so much here in America.
On March 9, 1907, the Indiana State Senate, in a vote of 28-16, made history by being the first jurisdiction in the world to force the sterilization of citizens it deemed unfit. Unfit to exist, unfit to reproduce. Connecticut was soon to follow. By the time Laughlin of the ERO had published his suggestion on how to implement legislation for forced human sterilization, 12 states had already put into place sterilization laws of their own. By 1924, 3,000 socially inadequate people had been sterilized. That same year, based on Laughlin's model, Aubrey E. Strode drafted Virginia's Eugenical Sterilization Act in an attempt to rid the state of defective persons. It passed in Virginia's General Assembly by a landslide. Immediately, the Virginia Colony for the Epileptic and Feeble-Minded selected 17-year-old Carrie Buck to be the first human sterilized under the act. Carrie had a feeble-minded child, the result of a raping by one of her relatives, and was daughter of a feeble-minded mother, Emma, already a resident on the Virginia colony. Carrie, purportedly carrying the genetic traits of feeble-mindedness and sexual promiscuity, was a fine candidate, as the law stated those to be sterilized must be probable potential parents of socially inadequate offspring. Carrie's feeble-mindedness was based on a male disposition by Laughlin, who had never met Carrie, and her sexual promiscuity was based on the testimony of her schoolteacher that she sent flirtatious notes to schoolboys. Carrie became the first person in Virginia to be sterilized under the new law on October 19, 1927. In the words of Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, official deliverer of the opinion of the United States Supreme Court in the case of Buck v. Bell, "It is better for all of the world if instead of waiting to execute degenerate offspring for crime, or to let them starve for their imbecility, society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. 3 generations of imbeciles are enough." Vivian, Carrie's feeble-minded daughter, received B's on her first-grade report card. Buck v. Bell justified the sterilizations of over 8,000 Virginians. Over the history of the United States, 33 states have enacted statutes under which 60,000 Americans underwent compulsory sterilizations. To this day, Buck v. Bell has never been overruled.
Nazi Germany embraced the eugenics movement from the United States and just upped it in its efficiency.
It should now be apparent that Germany's racial theories did not take place in a vacuum, nor can the fundamental philosophies and beliefs that would eventually lead to the atrocities of the Nazi state be attributed solely to German authorities. In fact, German scientists expressed a great affinity towards U.S. eugenic laws. A young Adolf Hitler wrote positively of the U.S.'s immigration restrictions, more specifically how the law refuses immigration on principle by simply excluding certain races for naturalization, in his book Mein Kampf. Shortly prior to mobilizing the most comprehensive eugenics legislation in modern history, Gerhard Wagner, head of the National Socialist Physician League, stated that America's eugenic policies should be used as a model for Germany to follow. Marie Kopp of the American Committee on Maternal Health proclaimed that the Nazi system of seeking out those to be sterilized was administered in entire fairness and was formulated after careful study of the California experiment, which had been responsible for 2,500 of the 3,000 involuntary sterilizations in the U.S. prior to 1924. The ERO boasted on how the German statute on race hygiene read almost identical to Laughlin's model sterilization law. Laughlin had such a significant impact on Nazi racial legislature that he was awarded an honorary degree from the University of Heidelberg. Laughlin thanked the university for reaffirming the common understanding of German and American scientists of the nature of eugenics. This common understanding would be translated into the law on preventing hereditarily ill progeny, which would be responsible for over 375,000 sterilizations in the Nazi state. A number so impressive, one American eugenics advocate complained, "The Germans are beating us at our own game." The sterilization program of the Nazi state, modeled after Laughlin's law and other U.S. eugenic theories, would be a gross prelude to the exterminations of the Holocaust. But even before the gas chambers were opened for the racist and anti-Semitic persecutions we know all too well, they were opened, in October 1939, for the systematic murder of the mentally ill citizens of Germany. Sadly, this practice was not faced with nearly as much stigmatism within the states, as euthanasia had long been discussed by American eugenicists as a solution for the feeble-minded.
So when people saw how eugenics can easily be abused by the power of the state, they said, that's it. This is a monstrous idea that you should keep a distance from.
It is now the dawn of the 21st century, and advancements in technology and medicine have excelled beyond even the most ambitious of projections. Science that eugenicists of the 20th century could only have dreamed of appear in our news every single day.
Of stem cell research
and picking the genes of our children.
Cloning of embryos for their destruction.
They've discovered stem cells in a new place.
The embryo has a genetic disease.
Genetic test. Is it a danger? It's always a danger when there are technologies that can be used and abused. And I think that the history of the eugenics movement tells us when a technology actually exists, people will try to use it, sometimes for reasons it was never intended to be used.
With the mapping of the human genome, prenatal testing, implantation genetic diagnosis, therapeutic cloning, and stem cell therapy, we find ourselves entering a promising world of genetic medicine. It is with this great power, however, that comes the need for even greater responsibility, sensitivity, and accountability.
Humanity truly does now possess a powerful tool for good. However, we must heed the warnings sounded by the coercive legislation and beliefs of the eugenics movement before we may venture into the frontier of modern genetic medicine. Tragedy may very well give way to triumph, but how that will be recorded in the history books of tomorrow will be determined by our actions today.
There's nothing written in stone that it could happen here. Or is there?
Sometimes called the American Stonehenge, the astronomically aligned Georgia Guidestones located in Elbert County, Georgia, contain 10 guidelines for the future of humanity. The Guidestones, which were defaced in 2008 by protesters, were originally built in 1980 after an unknown person going by the pseudonym R.C. Christian instructed Elberton Granite Finishing Company to build the structure. The most ominous guideline reads, quote, "Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature," a figure which of course couldn't possibly be achieved without either mass genocide or draconian and long-lasting programs of population control even more extreme than the one-child policy in China, which is enforced via punitive financial penalties and brutal state-sponsored kidnappings and forced abortion. Indeed, the official guidebook to the Georgia Guidestones lists the purpose of the monument as a message to the world of the pressing, quote, need to control human numbers via, quote, control of childbearing by programs of population control instituted by governments worldwide as part of a move towards the establishment of, quote, an effective world government. So this monument is basically an homage to a world dictatorship which would impose population control measures on humanity as part of a creepy, authoritarian, Brave New World style cradle-to-grave tyranny dressed up as a utopia. And it's rife with hypocrisy, because the very things that have proven to naturally reduce population growth and increase prosperity, development, trade, economic growth, energy exploration, and industrial food production have all been denied to the third world by this very same elite. And of course, if you've actually studied this issue from a statistical and demographic standpoint, the overpopulation bomb is a complete myth. As Professor Hans Rosling authoritatively documented in his presentation, Don't Panic, the Truth About Population, the problems of rapid population growth and poverty are being alleviated by technology and the raising of living standards in many of the poorest countries of the world. The real problem after 2050 will be underpopulation, and indeed several governments, most notably Russia, have in recent years been begging their population to have more children because of this already unfolding underpopulation crisis.
Is there anything more important than life itself? Yes, there is. Your soul. Because we saw the biometric real ID as a step toward the mark of the beast police state, we had to make a stand against it.
History was made in West Virginia today when 3 men got a driver's license without the state then storing their digital pictures. Eyewitness News reporter Meredith Wood is here to explain what happened. Meredith?
Rick, for a decade, 3 men have been without a driver's license. The reason, they say having a digital picture stored in the database is against their religion.
I haven't had a driver's license in 10 years.
Nicholas County Pastor Butch, his brother Dick, and Philip Hudock have avoided lines at the DMV for a decade. They say it was a choice they had to make. All 3 believe having a digital picture stored by the state is the beginning of the biblical mark of the beast.
My religious convictions determine my political decisions.
It is Big Brother. It's going to be a database set up on every citizen in this country. They'll track, trace, monitor you everywhere you go.
While their religious views stop them from getting a license, they say it's also about keeping government in check.
We have had a nation for 200 years without all this. Why do we need it now?
So as a compromise, Governor Joe Manchin and Department of Motor Vehicles Commissioner Joseph Ciccarello agreed to only keep a printout picture on file, not digitally on a computer. But just like all other drivers, personal information like birth dates and addresses will be kept in a database.
Their information's in there, just not their picture.
Didn't hurt at all.
Like most drivers, the men have one complaint.
I've seen better pictures.
But Pa says it's still a victory and history in the making. He says by all accounts, West Virginia is the first state to make accommodations for drivers who don't want their pictures stored.
This is going to set a precedent through that state and the nation.
As they leave the DMV, the men drive away with legal licenses and a sense of empowerment. After all, they fought the law and won.
Sign that government can serve the people, and it's a sign that mountaineers are free.
If you have similar convictions and want to look into getting a license without having your picture stored, call the DMV at 558-2723. But again, this is an alternative and should not be considered the norm. In the studio, Meredith Wood, Eyewitness.
Was this the end of the story? No. The new Governor Tomlin ordered the DMV commissioner to rescind the accommodation. Our response? Masked biometrics and a tea party at the DMV. Is the battle over now? No. It's to be continued. Scripture tells us,
and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone.
Okay, folks, we're back. That was pretty heavy video selection of videos, I thought. And what we're going to do now, and you can call in if you want. It's 304-591-6993 for the next 20 minutes or so. Maybe, we're flexible. We'll just go where the Spirit leads us and give us some ideas on how this relates, how this relates to a Christian. Okay, we know how it relates to non-Christians. Number one, if they believe it, they're just fearful. And if they're fearful, what's the Bible say about fear?
The spirit of fear torments us.
Yeah, if fear is not of God, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So,
it's a tormentor.
One of the things that got me, and so I'll just share something with you, and that is, when you looked at that eugenics, what were they thinking? What was their mindset when they were undergoing this selective sterilization and stuff? It was that they could create a perfect society, that they could create a world without disease, without hunger, without crime, okay? And to me, that, I never used to think that pride was such a bad sin, but it is. because it's kind of like money's the root of all evil. Well, I think pride is pretty much the root of all sin.
Yeah.
You know, because you think you're like God, and I don't think God takes that very well. So, you know, that was one of the things that hit me. And anyone have anything that they'd like to share?
What I've seen on the eugenics is that it surprised me that we were the ones who started it and Adolf Hitler took it.
Mm-hmm.
But it kept going through my mind is on eugenics today, we have personally volunteered ourselves to practice eugenics personally, even as Christians are doing it. 1 or 2 children in the family. I mean, the American population of the Caucasian race is downsliding. And it's been going down to where less people or less children are born than people are dying. We have come into destruction ourselves. Now, the other thing with eugenics I thought a lot about was the vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
The vaccines is like, to me, I think it's very demonic. It's my personal feeling. But the vaccinating of children and adults is taking us to a point where we're volunteering into eugenics. Mm-hmm. We're destroying our own lives. And the altering of the DNA, the altering of the food, with the spraying in the skies, it's all part of the program, and it's come together. And we can run, but we can't hide. There's nowhere we can go. I don't care if you want to go to Timbuktu. You are not, well, Timbuktu is in India, and India is probably one of the biggest people of biometrics right now. But we can run, but we can't hide. There's nowhere. There's only one thing that we have hope on, and that's through Jesus Christ our Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can waste a lot of time in trying to hide or figuring out how you're going to hide. And certainly with those swarms, and that's technology that we have now. You know, they just haven't instituted it that we know of.
Yeah.
But they've been killing people with drones. We have. And that was I'll never forget. They called it a Hellfire drone. You remember they used it in Yemen?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And they were killing people in wedding parties and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder we're hated as a country.
And we're not the only one with drones now. Russia has developed a drone that's underwater drone. That can travel faster than any torpedoes built and has artificial intelligence. So Russia's just as evolved as we are.
You know, one other thing for birth control, whenever the government put Mommy out to work during World War II, the war was over, Mommy still wanted to work, and she had a career. Mm-hmm. And she can't have a career and children too, so she gave up her children to have a career and the money.
Yeah.
Birth control.
Yeah.
Steve?
With the drone bots and stuff, one electromagnetic pulse would wipe them out.
Yeah, a guy could
They
use that
drop
to
from the
stop
sky just like flies sprayed with raid.
That's true. That's true. And they probably use satellite technology for, you know, GPS for,
And
like where you see them swarming
a
from
lot
that
of
plane.
this complicated technology usually can be taken out with one simple little thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not you wouldn't have something that was just as complicated as the bot to take it out. There's probably some little thing that you could build your hands in your garage to neutralize them anyway.
Oh yeah, I mean, win some wars. You know, set them back.
Yeah.
Slow them down. You know, one thing the present political climate has given us is a little bit of breathing room. We should be using that to connect with people. You know, always, but especially now that, you know, we have that window of opportunity because we know it's going to. We know Scripture is going to be fulfilled, and we don't know when.
Yeah.
You know, but we.
But if you think about in the last 100 years, where the technology went from in 1917, or now into 18, to present. My mother's 95 years old. She can remember the first flight with the Wright brothers.
Mm-hmm.
She can remember, well, I do remember it. As a boy, I can remember locomotives being, steam trains going over. But, who visualized that from World War I, we set up a gas balloon to do surveillance. Today that we have a drone that is manned, is not powered by a man, maybe computerized, without official intelligence, taking people out. Who thought of the day that we're going to go from, like I said, my mother's 95. She washed clothes by hand, took them all week. Today, you just throw them in a box, push a button, it agitates it and cleans it. The technology we have is so far advanced that there's no way we can walk backwards with it. And in 100 years, we went from what some people might think was a caveman lifestyle.
Self-sufficient lifestyle.
A self-sufficient lifestyle, yes, very self-sufficient.
To depending on technology.
Mm-hmm. Not depending on luxuries.
And it made us fearful and took away our pride. I mean, we're not supposed to have unbridled pride, because then that leads to, being a false god.
One of the greatest accomplishments man's ever had was providing for his family.
Makes you happy.
Yeah, it's a great accomplishment, providing for his family.
Yeah, those farmers that worked all day in the fields and worked hard, there was a joy in that.
Yeah.
I think that's why I got that whole series of Little House on the Prairie, because it's in the 1800s, and you could see that their life is so much simpler than what ours is now.
Yeah, and those shows, like I showed Andy Griffith,
Right.
they were somewhat unreal, but they were based on a lot of principles that people had then, and evil's always been around. I'll never forget, I saw a clip of Walter Cronkite. He was speaking at a meeting. It was a meeting the term Federalist was in the name of the group. It was a globalist enclave, and he was speaking to them, and they said Walter Cronkite was known as the most trusted man in America back when, let's say, we supposedly landed on the moon, which I can't say we didn't, but I can tell you what they've shown us is fake. But if Walter Cronkite said it, as a matter of fact, there's another video I have. I'll probably like to share it sometime, of a man who told how Walter Cronkite in Vietnam, when the Tet Offensive happened, that they actually suffered the North suffered tremendously in that. And Walter Cronkite reported it as if, well, looks like, we've taken ground and this has been a crushing blow for the North. 2 days later, he came to the United States and he said, this is a stalemate, we can never win this war. In 2 days, he changed the story. He was in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And this military guy who was there, he's now a brigadier general, and he was saying, I want to go to the schools to explain what really happened there, because LBJ actually said, well, he said, you remember where he said, I will not run again, I will not accept the nomination of my party and everything, and he didn't run again. Basically, it was the same thing that Trump brought to our attention. That's fake news. The news was controlling the war. Mm-hmm. The news was controlling the narrative. Now, we shouldn't have been in Vietnam. That was a bad war.
No.
But it was not, it's amazing. And then Walter Cronkite, in this meeting, this is now where he's getting some award, he's in his late 80s, and he says something about, because he's talking about, we're going to make a new world order. Okay, back to this pride. And he said, and some Christians told me that it says in the Bible that there will never be peace until Christ returns. And he said, if that's the truth, then I sit at the right hand of Satan, and I'm proud of it.
Whoa.
That was Walter Cronkite. He said it. I've got it on video. He's sitting at the right hand of Satan, and he's proud of it. Does that tell you something? You know.
The sin of idolatry is really heavy with him. Very heavy.
Yeah. So, anyway, you know, just some things. The man. Oh, I want to bring this up. You saw Joe Ciccarello. Joe Ciccarello was the DMV commissioner. And when Butch and Dick and I started meeting, we had meetings with Joe Ciccarello. We had a state senator who was working with us and helping us. He was arranging these meetings. We had numerous meetings. They're actually on the internet. They're on YouTube. I videotaped them. They weren't too happy about that in the Capitol building. But Joe Ciccarello was a fine man.
Yes, he was.
As a matter of fact, he was the DMV commissioner when Senator Manchin granted us the accommodation, our religious accommodation. And after I got my license, I was taking my daughter down to Virginia to college at Emory and Henry. And we were going through Charleston, and I thought, you know, I'm going to stop and I'm going to see Joe Ciccarello, you know, because I had my biometric driver's license, and I really like Joe. So my daughter stayed in the car, and I went up and I went to his office and asked the secretary, and she said, he'll see you in a minute. Have a seat. And Joe came out, and he said, come on in. And I sat down. I said, how you doing, Joe? He said, this is my last day on work. I got fired. Manchin had fired him. Manchin had fired him.
He turned
and I just realized yesterday when I was thinking about this, because I was producing this video, and I thought, I remember now that Joe said to me, he said, you know, he said, I promised you that the biometrics would never leave the state of West Virginia. He was proud of that. He said he had that in the DMV policy, okay, and he was proud of that. And of course, what happened was, and when we were in meetings with the governor, I told the governor point blank. I said, "You realize the federal government's not going to like you doing this." Well, Manchin left. Tomlin came in, but Manchin fired Joe Ciccarello in the meantime. Tomlin comes in, and he scraps the whole thing, doesn't even tell us. And then they said the reason they scrapped it was there were only just a handful of people that got it, and it was a total lie. They were just doing everything they could to kill it. And West Virginia now prides himself on being the most Real ID compliant state in the United States.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, you know, Joe, I'm sure he wasn't perfect, but you know, he was one politician, one appointment by the governor. He was in the governor's cabinet that I admired, but you know, look what it cost him. And years later, I tried to contact him and get his. Find out where he was, and I couldn't find. He just disappeared. I don't know what happened to him, but he was a fine man. So
he was a good man.
Yeah, and I think he understood what we were doing.
Yeah.
Even Manchin understood what we were doing, because we were just honest with them, and it was a no-brainer. But
plus, Manchin wanted to vote, and he wanted Bush to back him on the radio.
Yeah, and when we had a demonstration there with a lot of people with signs, they say that for every person you see in the Capitol with a sign, that's probably counts 1,000 votes. So, you know, protesting does have its can have its effect. I think when Manchin saw those 50, 60 people out there with signs, he was thinking, you know, it was, you know,
votes, these politicians.
You're right, and we've seen that.
Yep.
We've seen that. So
where in the hills of West Virginia are they picking up all the electronic eavesdropping?
I believe that was Sugar Grove.
Okay.
There's a big naval observatory over there, and well, it was, but now wasn't that sold?
Seemed to me like it was.
Yeah, sure. I think the Navy moved out, and the governor had the option of deciding what to do with the property. And I can't remember exactly what's happened. There have been several things. I think there is a concern that's going to use it. But I believe that was Sugar Grove. I don't think that was Greenbank.
No, it wasn't Greenbank.
Right.
But what part does Greenbank play?
Well, Greenbank is under what's it called? What's the letters?
NAS.
National Air
Space. Or
yeah, I should know. That's terrible. I spent 2 weeks there once.
NRAO.
NARO, right? National.
NR.
National Radio Astronomical Observatory, I believe it is.
NARO.
Yeah. Right. So, but visiting scientists would go there, and they would stay there. They had to apply maybe a year or two ahead and come up with a research project. And then if the muckety-mucks said it was viable, then they would say, okay, you had so much time on the telescopes, radio telescopes. They also used it for teaching, for teachers. They had a teacher program where you actually operated a 40-foot telescope. It was just for teachers to use. It was an old one, but it was pretty interesting. I mean, we got to do some scans and pick up some radio, not signals, but signals, but not from intelligent life. They really want to find some intelligence out there. I want to find some intelligence here.
They're looking the whole world over and they found none yet.
Yeah. Well, actually, they're just looking in the wrong place.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people already found living here intelligent life out there, but it's the wrong God.
So, anyway, the number is 304-591-6993. It should be on your screen every 5 minutes for 10 seconds, or something like that. So if you don't call real soon, we're going to go to the next part of the program, and I think you'll enjoy it. It's Lee Strobel from 2011 with a bunch of other things, and I apologize that they say men's minds are focused and women's minds are a jumble of thoughts all the time. Somehow when I go to make a video, I end up with a woman's mind, and I go all over the place. Huh?
That's just the females coming
So I don't know. A lot of times I see connections and I see how things fit, and people are just like scratching their head, like, "What's that mean? What's this about?" So I don't know. Maybe I spent too much time on the computer. But at any rate, I'm going to get up and switch the program. So we will go to it's Lee Strobel, Case for Creation, Part 1A. And sometime I'll do Part 1B.